Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64, Video Game Music Remix Radio. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Please stop by radiomeanwhile.com for more about this show and others like it. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Many of these songs can be found at ocremix.org. That's Overclocked Remix. That song you just heard was called Morning Thinker by DragonAvenger and Mattias Häggström Gerdt from the game Silent Line Armored Core. The original track was Morning Lemon Tea and Thinker, originally by Kota Yoshino, Kashi Yanagawa, and Sakasa Sayoto. I have no experience with the Armored Core games whatsoever, but that track has been an absolute favorite of mine since they released the album, the Answer Armored Core Tribute album, part of OC Remix. I used to actually have a couple CDs that I had like 5 tracks on, and I would put it in my alarm clock CD player in college, and I would just wake up to those 5 songs, which would then repeat. And this was one of those tracks on there. It was just, it starts off a little bit slower, a little bit quieter, and then it just kind of bust out with that electric guitar, picks up a lot of energy and adrenaline, and I love DragonAvenger's vocals, even though what she's singing is pretty limited and just kind of reused. I just love it. I think this song has a lot of energy. I think it's a lot of fun. It makes me kind of interested in playing the Armored Core games, but I'm going to a retro game con in Syracuse, New York over the weekend, so maybe I'll keep my eye out for Silent Line Armored Core. I guess it's a PS2 game, but that track and the whole album, The Answer from OCRemix.org, you should definitely check it out. So again, that was Morning Thinker by DragonAvenger, Mattias, Häggström, Gerdt from OCRemix.org. Now we're going to mellow things out a bit with some acoustic music. This song is called AmIEviL by the remixer AmIEviL. AmIEviL is actually one of the very first remixers that I really became a fan of when I first started going to Overclocked Remix. He just was a very solid remixer, and every track I listened to that he had done became one that I really enjoyed, whether or not I had played the game. He actually does one of my absolute favorite remixes of Terra, but the one I picked today is from The Secret of Monkey Island. It's the opening theme, which I think is just a great piece of music. It's by Andy Newall, Barney Jones, Michael Land, and Patrick Monday. And I think the opening theme to The Secrets of Monkey Island is just such a cool, mellow, pirate piece of music. And when you start up that game and you just see the lights of the small dockside village on Monkey Island, it just really sets the atmosphere. This track doesn't get too crazy, but I think it really kind of hammers home that mellow pirate sound with that acoustic that's going on, a little bit of a accordion throughout the song, that folk vibe. This is AmIEviL by AmIEviL from OCRemix.org. That was AmIEviL by AmIEviL from OCRemix.org. The only Monkey Island game I've ever started and finished was Escape from Monkey Island back on the PS2. I think I started the first Secret of Monkey Island when they released the remake/remaster. I gotta get back to finishing that. I'm not good at adventure games, you know? I'm not somebody who can be like, oh, I have a wrench and a rubber chicken. What can I do? Oh, I can make a bowl of soup, which allows me to float on lava. Yeah, that's not how my brain works. But that's how the LucasArts adventure games work. Up next is a song from Star Fox, the Super Nintendo Star Fox game. One that I just did not get into as a kid. We rented it a few times, and I just couldn't understand what the big deal was. I mean, the graphics were really cool. In 1993, I was just not about what the game was doing. But it has the background music for Corneria is cool stuff, and that was originally by Hajime Hirasawa. And this remix is called Crosswind by B-laze, and it's cool. It's a very synthwave take on the Corneria theme from Star Fox. It's layered with the perfect amount of cheese because the amount of in-game voices that is being used throughout this song is just right up my alley. I love any kind of electronica take on a remix where you get those voices in there like, what's happening? It's coming from above! And then the bass drops in. I love that stuff. We played a Sonic song a couple episodes ago that does the same thing. Just give me those cheesy voice effects from old Super Nintendo, old Nintendo 64 games. I love it. I eat it up. Crosswind does not disappoint. So, this is called Crosswind by B-laze from ocremix.org.
It's about time you showed up, Fox. You're the only hope for our world.
Roger, General. We're entering Corneria City now. All aircraft report.
Falco here. I'm fine.
This is Peppy. All systems go.
Flippy here. I'm okay.
Check your G-diffuser system. Open the wing. good, Fox.
Buck, we are in your debt.
Roger, General.
That was Crosswind by B-laze from OCRemix.org. It's just Blaze. It's B-laze. And I keep saying B-laze, but it's just Blaze. I don't know why that dash is making it so difficult for me. There's a few remixes of the Corneria theme from Star Fox that I really like, but this is the newest one. This one actually only just came out in October, so I really got into this song. I was glad to hear it as I was about to record this episode, because cool new song to feature on today's Radio 64. So a couple songs ago, I mentioned that one of my favorite remixes is based off of the Terra theme from Final Fantasy VI, and the Terra theme from Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite pieces of video game music. Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite video games of all time, absolutely in the top 3. My favorite Final Fantasy. This one is actually one of the newer Terra remixes. It's not just Terra, but it's also the Decisive Battle by Nobuo Uematsu from Final Fantasy VI. The Final Fantasy VI has one of the greatest soundtracks. I think it's one of the absolute best soundtracks in gaming, period. I think every character theme, every piece of music is just so well done and fits its intended focus so well. Each character's piece fits that character perfectly. Terra's theme is also the overworld theme from Final Fantasy VI. It's just a memorable piece of music. This is called Terra Magitek Perfect by OceansAndrew. Again, OceansAndrew can have a very energetic style. We played a Donkey Kong Country 2 piece a while ago that really was a kickin' piece of music. What's really impressive is how OceansAndrew combines the two tracks together. They sound like they've always meant to just lock together, I think. So again, up next, Terra Magitek Perfect by OceansAndrew from OCRemix.org. was Terra, Magitek Perfect by OceansAndrew from OCRemix.org. Up next is a much longer piece. This one is called Forgone Rejuvenation from Unreal Tournament. This is by Phrakture. That's Phrakture Phrakture. I thought I was just going to stop at the PH, but nothing about that name is standard. Way to go, Phrakture. The original track was called Forgone Destruction. It's a very cool, relaxed piece. I almost said chillaxed because I'm a dweeb. This has definitely been a track that I've put on many times when I've been sitting down to read or just relax. So this is called Forgone Rejuvenation by Phrakture from OCRemix.org. That was Forgone, Rejuvenation by Phrakture from OCRemix.org. And one that I think benefits from being as long as it is, because you can really just kind of get lost in it, and you can put it on repeat. It becomes 12 minutes. Just keep doing it. Play it all day. We've got a very 80s piece coming up next. This is from the first Donkey Kong Country, the 1994 Donkey Kong Country. Music originally by David Wise, Evelyn Novakovic, and Robin Beanland. This is from Fear Factory. You know, we always talk about aquatic ambience, but Fear Factory is one that's always, like, the source tune always sounds like it was meant to be a rave song. But this one actually kind of brings it back a little bit and really hammers home those electric drums, that synth sound, to make a really cool 80s version of all that. This is called Factory of Fear by Bryan L. from OCRemix.org. That was Factory of Fear by Bryan L. from OCRemix.org. So I never played any of the RoboCop games. I guess the one on CPC came out in 1988, so I would have been 2 years old. I would have been too young to have watched RoboCop, to have played RoboCop. The title track from RoboCop, from multiple ones, the Game Boy version and other ones, it's gotten a lot of play over the years. The track showed up in those Ariston washing machine commercials. It's a pretty piece of music, but when it's played on the older machines, it becomes kind of introspective, and I've really liked it. It's probably one of my favorite things to come out of RoboCop, never being the biggest fan of the property. Yeah, so only a few years ago did I become familiar with the source tune title from the RoboCop games. That meant only recently did I become familiar with CPC Zone by Malc Jennings. The original soundtrack was by Jonathan Dunn. The source being remixes from the Amstrad CPC, but I feel like this kind of brings it more in line with the Game Boy sound that I'm used to hearing. This becomes a bit boppy, becomes a bit bouncy, I think. So this is CPC Zone by Malc Jennings from OCRemix.org. That was CPC Zone by Malc Jennings from OCRemix.org. It's that chirping sound. It's that beeping chirping sound throughout it that's playing higher than the bass line. Let's get a little aggressive in today's episode with some Streets of Rage. Was originally scored by Yuzo Koshiro. The original music for Streets of Rage is held up as being as a classic in the canon, and rightfully so. You can definitely tell he was pushing game music to sound a lot more like the electronica music of the time, which is 1991. It definitely sounds unlike anything else, I think, when you're comparing to other video game soundtracks. Now, this is called Bare Knuckle Blitz by WillRock, and it's remixing Fighting in the Street and Go Straight. You can still hear the club music in this track, but it's a bit heavier. There's a lot more guitar. This is from the Heroes vs. Villains albums from OCRemix.org. And the Heroes vs. Villains album is one of my favorites. It's a concept album where they take a game and they remix one song of the heroes and remix one song of the villain of it. And it's an absolutely enjoyable album. It's definitely check it out. Sound you're going to hear right as the track starts. I'm not musically technical, but it has that kind of echo distortion that you can just kind of feel the 80s just seeping through. This is called Bare Knuckle Blitz by WillRock from OCRemix.org from the Heroes vs. Villains album. That was Bare Knuckle Blitz by WillRock from the Heroes vs. Villains albums from ocremix.org. Another album from Overclocked Remix was called Harmony of a Hunter, which was featuring tracks from multiple games throughout the Metroid series. So this one is specifically from Super Metroid. You know, I was saying Final Fantasy VI is in my top 3 games. Super Metroid's right up there, right in the top 3. That's not a hot take. It's a very atmospheric game. It uses the Super Nintendo sprites and chip music to perfection to create such an eerie sci-fi feel that just sticks in your memory forever. But this is from the Brinstar plant overgrowth area, which I always felt, and this is probably because of all the green in the level and all the life, that it was a lot more, it was less lonely than the other areas of the world. The original soundtrack for Super Metroid was by Kenji Yamamoto and Minako Hamano. This is called Into the Green World by Sam Dillard. It's more orchestral than anything we've played in this episode. It kind of feels like if John Williams was getting a hold of the Metroid soundtrack. And I know it's a bit tired to hear an orchestral piece and then compare it to John Williams, but I feel like this is more in line with Williams' style from the 70s and 80s, as opposed to the other great film composers that we have today. This is Into the Green World by Sam Dillard, ocremix.org. was Into the Green World by Sam Dillard from the album Harmony of a Hunter from ocremix.org. I think that track, absolutely cinematic. The Metroid movie that has never been appearing on a big screen to that track. It's absolutely fantastic. Our last track of this episode is from Metal Gear Solid. That's Metal Gear Solid 1. So this is the Metal Gear Solid main theme by Reuben Key. It's called Legend of a Snake. This one has a lot more piano and strings together. Near the end, during the climax of this song, it really builds into this action-packed piece of music. Metal Gear Solid, one of the greatest games of all time. One of my favorites from the PS1. Actually, one of the first PS1 games that I played that wasn't a Final Fantasy game and showed me that maybe my Nintendo fandom needed to cool down a little bit and check out what other consoles had. So Metal Gear Solid might have been pretty important to get me to the road to get me to the PS2, which had some of my favorite games of all time, so I owe it that. This is Legend of the Snake by Reuben Key from ocremix.org. And that was Legend of the Snake by Reuben Key from ocremix.org. And that's the end of this episode of Radio 64. I've been your host, Eric Mickles, also known as duskvstweak. You can find past episodes of Radio 64 on YouTube at youtube.com/duskvstweak. You can find this week's episode also on iTunes and SoundCloud at Radio 64. Again, this show is part of the Radio Meanwhile Network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information on this show and other great podcasts. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time.